Hello.
Hey Shiva, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure. I can hear you.
Perfect. Let's wait for the others to join Shiva. I was supposed to be starting the first class today, but no one has joined yet.
Okay.
We'll just wait for 5 minutes. If no one joins, we'll just take up a small demo session for you to get to know what the course is about. Okay. In the meanwhile, if you have any questions, if you have any queries, you can let me know.
Yeah, sure.
Perfect.
When will we start the session?
We usually started at 8 o'clock itself, Shiva. But again, since these are demo classes, we are just waiting for the students to join. So we'll be starting
Okay.
it by 8:10 or so. Okay, but regularly the class will start at 8 o'clock sharp, 8 or 8:05 max, not more than that.
Yeah. Shoaib, actually, I have a few questions regarding the course. Can I ask?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, just I'm a little bit nervous about the future in cyber security. When there is assurity by your side, I get a better job compared to data scientist.
You're working in the data science job role right now, is what you think?
No, I'm looking for two courses. First one is data science and another one is cyber security.
Okay, not sure about the data science field, Shiva, much because again I've never been again, as I've mentioned, known to data science. But as I've mentioned about cyber security, I've mentioned this in the previous classes as well. So if you're planning to obtain a job in cyber security, and if you're a fresher, you can always go to this website called jobs.null.co.in. So there's something called as null community in India. The community is built by people who are already in cybersecurity since a long time. So this website was built by them. And this is a website specifically for cybersecurity jobs in India. And you can see there's tons and tons of job listings at the moment. Okay, so these are getting updated from time to time again. So if you're a fresher, you would click on the freshers tab here. And these are the job roles for a fresher, as you can see. So definitely there's a lot of scope. It all depends on your preparation and your skills that you build throughout the course, okay, and how you practically implement them. But there is no scarcity of jobs or so. As I've mentioned, there's tons and tons of job postings available. It's all that you need to be about the competition by being a bit more practically knowledgeable on all the tools that we use.
Okay, great.
Right. So again, any other questions? Sure.
No. And if see, is there is means I heard in my college days, uh, if we did something in cyber security, I'm not sure if we do something wrong in cyber security, so the police case and something, some causes will happen.
Yeah, that is cyber crime again, right, Shiva? So definitely, whenever you perform cyber crime attacks, you would it's illegal. So whenever something is illegal, you might definitely fall under trouble. So when you're working for an organization, there's a set of boundaries, there's a set of rules and regulations and policies that you have to follow. So as long as you're within the boundary and as long as you abide by all the rules and policies of the organization, you won't be facing any trouble. The trouble only comes when you perform something illegal. Okay, and we learn throughout the course what is illegal, what is legal. Okay, and what are the, again, as I've mentioned, the technical parts. Okay, what you're allowed to do in organization. Okay,
Yes.
so we learn what hacking is, we learn what ethical hacking is. Okay, and how do you stay safe, okay, without facing any trouble for yourself.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
No problem. Sure. We'll just wait for 2 more minutes, Shiva, and see if the others join. If not, we'll just take a very brief demo, okay, on what the course is about and what topics we'll be learning in the upcoming classes.
Right. Right. Okay. For the course, any hardware networking knowledge required? Hmm. Hello, Shoaib.
Shiva, I'm so sorry. I was on a call. I was asking the institute if the others are going to join. Yeah, again, as I've mentioned, you don't need knowledge on hardware things, Shiva. You don't need to have knowledge on hardware components or stuff, but definitely we need to know about networking. So, but since not everyone might be from a technical background, we have actually included basics of networking in this course. Okay, so there's a few prerequisites to cover, and we're going to cover them ourselves. Okay, so I'll be teaching you what networking fundamentals are, what are IP addresses, what are IPv4 addresses, what are public IPs, what are private IPs, what is a DHCP server, what is a DNS server. So all those networking 101 fundamentals will be covered. Okay. Once that is done, then we learn how to create a lab setup, and then we learn about Linux commands. So after all these prerequisite concepts are done, then we dive into the advanced course of cybersecurity. Okay, so hardworking knowledge is not so much required. My bad, I'm so sorry again. Hardware component knowledge is not so required, but definitely on networking or Linux commands.
Okay, okay. So networking concept you will teach here, right? In this course.
I will be. Yes, I will give you a brief introduction on what networking is and what are the common fundamental concepts in networking. We won't be going in depth because that itself is a separate course, okay? But we learn what networking is, what are the important protocols in networking, and what are IP addresses. So we'll learn the fundamentals of that. Sufficient for the cybersecurity course.
Okay.
Right. Any other questions? Sure.
No, if I get, I will ask.
Okay, sure.
The,
Okay, Shiva. Let's get started then. Let me just give you a brief introduction to this course, and before that, an introduction to myself as well. My name is Mohammed Shoaib. I'm a cybersecurity trainer certified from EC Council. EC Council is the organization which is providing this course called ethical hacking to us. Okay, it is also the organization which specializes in certifications and trainings in cybersecurity. It's a US-based organization. Okay, and the curriculum that we are going to follow throughout the course is the same curriculum that is provided by the EC Council organization. Okay. Now, the course is called as Certified Ethical Hacking version 12, the latest version of the course running right now. Every year, the version gets updated, and some topics keep getting removed or added. Okay, so if some concept is again very outdated, those topics get removed. If there's something new in the cybersecurity world, that definitely gets added to the curriculum. Okay. Now, before we get into the technical aspect of the course, let's talk about these basic definitions of what hacking and what ethical hacking are. Okay, and again, most of the students assume that this is one and the same term. Hacking and ethical hacking are same, but again, there's a huge difference between those. So let me clarify that misconception. So firstly, when you talk about hacking, it is the procedure of trying to gain access to information systems. What I mean by that phrase, gaining access to information systems, is that, for example, if I've hacked your phone, it means I can remotely access the data on your phone. Okay, so I can access the data, I can delete the data, modify the data, or even sell that data to other people. So I have complete remote access to your device, okay, and the data it holds. And this is all done without your permission, without your consent or without your knowledge. I get access to your data. Okay. So this is usually performed by hackers for their benefit. Okay. And sometimes hackers are so mischievous, they can even do it just for fun. Okay. So when we talk about gaining access to information systems in a real time, it could not only be a phone, it could be also web application servers or databases, okay, or again, local client operating system devices also. Okay. And now when you talk about ethical hacking, on the other hand, it is the procedure of trying to find vulnerabilities. This term called vulnerability is something that you'll hear throughout the course. So let me define that first. A vulnerability is a loophole or a weakness or a flaw in the security of the organization or the information systems. So ethical hackers try to find these loopholes in the security of the organization, and they try to report it back. Okay, and all of this is done with the consent and with the permission of the organization. So once the vulnerabilities are reported back, the organization or the company is going to patch them. It's going to apply the security updates. And once with those updates, this organization's systems become secure. You're preventing the hackers from causing any further harm. So thereby, with ethical hacking, you're trying to strengthen the security of the infrastructure rather than cause any harm to the organization. Okay. So hacking is where you're trying to get access to the systems with the vulnerabilities. Ethical hacking is finding those vulnerabilities itself and remediating them or removing them. Okay, is that clear, Shiva? What is hacking? What is ethical hacking?
Yeah, understood.
Perfect. Now, depending on these two definitions, now we can categorize the types of hackers. There's someone known as a black hat hacker, there's someone known as a gray hat hacker, and then there's someone known as a white hat hacker. Black hat hackers are the cyber criminals, or again, the bad guys who perform hacking for their benefit. White hat hackers are the good guys of the movie. So these people are ethical hackers who abide by the laws and policies and work to secure the infrastructure of the organization. And in between, there's a third category called gray hat hackers. Now, these people have both the qualities of black hat as well as white hat. So like a black hat hacker, they don't ask for permission first, but once they find the vulnerability, they report it back to the company like a white hat hacker. But there's a minor catch here. When they're reporting it, they report it in return for a bounty. A bounty is something which benefits the hacker for finding and reporting the weaknesses. It could be a money reward, a financial reward, or a reputational reward. So they work for bounties in return to give vulnerabilities to the companies. So these people are something like freelance hackers as well. Okay. And all these three types of hackers, whether you take black hat, gray hat, or white hat hackers, are professionals who perform hacking or ethical hacking in a certain way. And that procedure of performing hacking or ethical hacking collectively is called as hacking cycle. Okay. Some organizations also term it as cyber kill chain. So your EC Council organization has given you a very well-rounded and a very perfect hacking cycle, perfect procedure to perform pen testing or to perform ethical hacking or normal black hat hacking. Now, firstly, let me list out all the steps in the hacking cycle, and then we'll briefly talk about all of these steps. So firstly, the step in hacking cycle that starts is information gathering. You can also call it as reconnaissance or footprinting. Second step is called as scanning, which can also be called as enumeration. Third step is gaining access. Fourth step is maintaining access. And the last step is reporting or clearing traces. Now, if you notice, only in the last step, I've written or. The reason being, no matter what kind of a hacker you are, the first four steps are exactly identical. So whether you be a black hat hacker, a gray hat hacker, or a white hat hacker, the first four procedures are compulsorily to be followed. What changes is only the last step. So if you're a white hat hacker or a gray hat hacker, you report the vulnerabilities that you have found back to the organization. But on the other hand, if you're a black hat hacker, you don't report anything. You don't want to be known. You don't want to be figured out who you are. So you try to remove the evidences. Okay, you try to stay anonymous and you delete all the evidences or the footprints. Okay, and that in simple terms is called as clearing traces. Okay, to stay anonymous and not get caught. Okay, now the first step, which is called as information gathering. Again, from the name itself, you can figure out this is the step where the hacker tries to obtain information about the organization. Okay, and now this information that you're trying to obtain is obtained passively. What I mean by passively is that you don't contact the organization in any way. You get the information from third-party websites. Okay, so if I give you an example of a bank robber, let's say if I were a bank robber, and if I want to rob a bank, first thing I have to do is I have to research about the bank. So I have to look at the bank externally, okay, and notice like how many security cameras are there, how many security guards are there, when does the bank open. Voice is not coming properly. Oh, can you hear me now, Shiva?
Your voice is actually not coming properly.
Are you sure? Because let me check my audio devices. Just a second.
No, right now, I can hear you properly.
Oh, okay. It's better. It's perfectly fine now.
Yes, okay. Yeah,
Perfect.
please go ahead.
Sure. So as I was mentioning, when you talk about information gathering, it is a step where you try to gather data about the target organization. Okay, and all of this data is obtained passively. Passively in the sense you do not contact the organization, but you still retrieve the information from third-party websites on the internet. Okay, so just like a bank robber, when he wants to rob a bank, he needs to first look at the bank externally. Okay, figure out where the security cameras are, how many security guards are there, when do the security guards change their shift, when does the bank open, when does the bank close, okay, how many customers go in and come out on a daily average basis. Okay, so trying to observe these details from externally without the bank knowing. Okay, similarly, when you talk about information gathering for an organization, you try to retrieve all the information that is mentioned on the screen. And believe it or not, all this information is readily available on the internet. So we'll talk about each of these pieces of information and how that is relevant during the classes. But for now, when you talk about information gathering, whatever data is mentioned here, you gather all this data from the internet. Okay. Once this data is gathered, once you get the IP addresses or the employee details and the contact information and the usernames and passwords, next thing is scanning. Okay, so scanning is a phase where you get some extra information about the organization by making active connections. Active in the sense directly contacting the organization. Now, why is this necessary? If we take the example of the bank robber again, not all information can be gathered from outside the bank. You also need to know what is the internal infrastructure. Okay, so you need to enter the bank once and see how many security guards are there inside, how many cameras are installed inside, where is the vault located inside. Okay, so unless and until you enter the organization, you won't know about it. Okay, so similarly, in an organization as well, once you get internally in the organization, you perform scanning. And basically, there are three types of scanning. There's something called as network scan, port scan, and vulnerability scan. In network scan, you try to figure out on the target organization how many internal active devices are there. So how many servers are they using? How many routers are they using? How many firewalls are they using? How many, again, IDS or IPS systems are they using? So trying to get a network topology of the internal organization. Once you get that information, the next thing you do is port scanning, trying to figure out on those devices what ports are open and what services are running on their systems. And once you find all that information, finally you perform vulnerability scanning, trying to figure out how do you attack on each of these services if it contains a loophole. So it's a step-by-step procedure, trying to find the devices first. On the devices, you're finding the ports and services running. On those services, you're trying to find for weaknesses or vulnerabilities. Okay. Any questions up to this part? Sure.
No. Understand totally.
Perfect. Now, once all this information has been gathered, the next important phase is gaining access. Now, this is the main core of the subject where we learn how to attack each and every endpoint. So we talk about system hacking, where you try to crack the Windows passwords. So if you have a Windows 11 system or a Windows 10 or Windows 7, doesn't matter which one, I'm going to show you how hackers can crack your system's password or bypass the password and get access to your internal data. Okay. Then we talk about malwares. Malwares are nothing but malicious softwares. So we learn what are the different categories of malwares. How do hackers generate malwares? How do you defend your system from malwares? Okay. Or if there are already malwares present on your system, how do you detect those? Okay, so we'll learn about in-depth analysis of what malwares are. Okay, then we talk about some network attacks, local internal network attacks, such as sniffing attack, man-in-the-middle attack, denial of service attacks. Okay, or how do you hack Wi-Fi routers, crack the password for Wi-Fi routers, wireless attacks. All these are internal network attacks. Okay. Then we learn about social engineering. How do hackers create fake websites? How do they perform phishing attacks? So again, in social engineering, what happens is if I am the attacker, I create a fake login page. It could be a social media page or it could be a bank login page, and I send this fake page to you. If you're not verifying the page and if you get fooled and if you enter any credentials in this website, those credentials come to me directly. I can access your usernames and passwords now. Okay. And if you don't use two-factor authentication also, I can actually get access to your account as well. Okay, with these attacks. So now, after that, we'll learn about web application pen testing, where we learn how do we attack websites. Okay, how do you hack the databases with the websites, or how do you upload malicious files to a website, or log in as other users in a website without knowing their passwords. All that website attack. And finally, we have hacking mobile phones, where I'll show you how hackers hack your Android phones as well. How do they send malwares to your Android phone and remotely control your Android data? Okay. So if you notice over here, we are talking about each and every endpoint. We are talking about system security. We are talking about network security. We're talking about wireless security. Then we talk about web application security and also about mobile security. These are all the applications or devices that could exist in an organization. Once this main core of the subject is done, you have two small topics left out, which are maintaining access and reporting or clearing traces. Now, in maintaining access, we learn how do we maintain persistent connections. Persistent connections in the sense, if I have attacked your system once, and if you restart your system, I should still be able to connect to you. I should not lose my connection. So that is what is meant by persistent connections. And then finally, we learn how do we report the vulnerabilities found to the organization, like a white hat hacker, or how do we remove the evidences as well, like a black hat hacker. So the course is going to run in two tracks where we learn the defense methodologies and also the attack methodologies. Okay, so we learn simultaneously how do we attack systems and defense systems from hackers. Now, as I've mentioned again, since not everyone might belong from a technical background, before we dive into this course, we'll talk about a few prerequisite concepts. We'll talk about networking, we'll talk about Linux commands, we'll talk about how do you set up a lab to practice these concepts on your system. So all these concepts are covered first, and then we dive into the advanced topics, okay, the hacking cycle topics. The whole course is going to be for a duration of 30 to 35 days at least, and you'll have classes from Monday to Friday every day for 1 hour. Timing should be same. There should be no change in timings. It's going to be at 8 p.m. itself. Okay. And I will be probably taking the first class tomorrow, Shiva, where we'll learn about networking concepts first. Okay. So yeah, that's that. Nothing further. A brief intro to what the course is about. And if you have any questions, you can let me know.
Okay, thank you. I have right now I have the idea whatever you are telling me. So timing, what did you say?
Same time, Shiva. As I've mentioned, it's going to be at 8 p.m. itself, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Monday to Friday, 1 hour, right?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Okay, I will let you know.
Sure, Shiva. No problem. Please do join the
How
session
many
tomorrow. That's also going to act as a demo for you, where we learn about
so how
networking.
many students will be there?
Yeah, sure. Sorry,
How
come
many
again?
students? How many students will be there?
Not sure, Shiva. We don't know how many of them are going to join, but on a rough average, there's around 7 to 10 students in every batch. Okay. So not usually more than that, because again, I need to concentrate on each student as well, clarify everyone's questions. So again, we split the batches. So we don't take more than 10 or 10 or 11 students per batch.
Okay, okay. And how old are you?
I am around 26, sure.
26. Okay. Okay, and your experience, which means what you did, could you please tell me?
I've worked as a SOC analyst, sure. So I used to work on tools like Splunk and, as I've mentioned, Alien Vault. So these are SOC analysis tools where you work. How do you monitor the data coming in an organization? How do you check for alerts? Okay, and how do you try to verify those alerts? And again, I've been working as a trainer as well since 2019 in Hyderabad. So I teach for a couple institutes in Hyderabad and a couple in Bangalore as well. So again, right now my whole as a job is in training itself. I don't work anymore as a SOC analyst. So I'm completely into trainings and certifications in cybersecurity.
Okay, okay. Okay, so
Any other questions? Sure.
no, no, no.
Perfect. Right. So yeah, that's that, Shiva. Nothing further. I'm gonna exit the session now, and I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. Okay. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.